Welcome. TBW Clips. I am Tyson. Today, Kamala Harris has picked her VP. I don't know much about him. I believe he's the governor of Minnesota. So let's check out his story. Let's check out this clip from Wall Street Journal. And let's get into this.
Kamala Harris named Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate.
Tim Walz
is a former school teacher and seasoned Washington lawmaker who has been credited with a new political insult against Republicans.
Yes, they're weird. They prove that every day. It's an observation.
Walz is viewed as more of a moderate figure, but someone who has picked up a number of progressive causes as governor. He's not somebody who has an extensive fundraising base or is someone who's very well known among the public.
Walz's ascension comes as Harris has consolidated support among Democrats after...
Now, Walz is the governor who presided over Minnesota during the whole George Floyd incident. The same state where they created their autonomous zone, where the citizens were like, this is our area, no government, nothing. Nobody else can get into this area. That was Minnesota, where Walz is governing, right? Some might say he didn't do that good of a job during that time in Minnesota. Let's keep going.
President Biden exited the race. Here's a look at what Walz brings as running mate in an election showdown with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Tim Walz is a proven winner among rural voters, and he's been very successful in Minnesota, which is a state that Republicans are trying to put onto the battleground map. Walz really gives this everyman persona. He's somebody who's very comfortable with farmers. He's also someone who can appeal to voters in the suburbs and the cities.
Hey, Minnesota Governor Walz here at the Great Minnesota Get Together.
The 60-year-old governor didn't begin his career in politics.
He's someone who worked as a school teacher for more than 2 decades. He also spent time in the military. So he really brings to the table a background of someone who had an entirely different life before he entered politics.
Walz was first elected to Congress in 2006, managing...
Let me say this. he's 60 years old. He's the same age as Kamala Harris. I believe Kamala's 59, so they're the same age. And he looks way older than Kamala. I'm sorry, he looks like he's like 70. He looks like he's in his 70s. I'm sorry. Let's keep going.
To unseat a 6-term Republican in one of the state's more conservative districts.
He was supportive of a number of issues related to agriculture. He also served as a leader on Veterans Affairs issues, given his extensive background in the Army Reserves. Walz was once given an A rating from the National Rifle Association. After the Parkland shooting in 2018, he quickly pivoted to support background checks, and the NRA disavowed many of his proposals.
After 12 years in Congress, Walz ran for Minnesota governor in 2018 as someone who could compromise with Republicans. He won by more than 11 percentage points.
So he seems to be like a middle-of-the-road type Democrat, you know, not totally to the left, not totally progressive. They said that he was backed by the Rifle Association. Then they said he pivoted. So here's a guy who was moderate, and it seems like he moved further and further to the left. Now he's progressive. And let me also say this: all the incidents that we've had, like with police regarding Black Americans, majority, I'm not going to say all because I don't know every single one, but the majority of them have seemed to be in Democrat cities, Democrat areas. It seems to be that way. So I don't know. I hate to get into this racial little conflict, but if we're going to go there and taking your talking points, those of you who are Democrat, liberal, who want to, I'm an independent, just to make that clear. I'm not Republican nor Democrat. I am an independent. I am actually in the middle. So I'm able to take a step back and look at both parties and see where my values line up with most. And I think where most people values line up, because I think we all want pretty much the same stuff, right? It's all about how we're going to go about doing that. So let's keep going.
Hello, one Minnesota.
Walz was re-elected in 2022 and a year later oversaw a Democratic-controlled state legislature with a progressive agenda.
He helped get through a program to provide universal school meals for children. He was supportive of codifying abortion rights. He was supportive of the legalization of recreational marijuana. He was viewed as somebody who was very progressive on climate change.
Let me speak to the recreational marijuana thing. I think that should be legal. I actually think most drugs in America should be legal. Come at me if you want, that's fine. You don't have to agree. Let me know down in the comments. But that's capitalist, right? That's capitalism. Having, I know you want to do what's best for the citizens, but we live in a free society. So in a free society, the people have to do what's best for them. Let me say that again. The people have to do what's best for them individually. And when you do stuff best for you individually, this guy does best for him individually, this guy, so on and so on, then the community, then it does what's best for the community. Because like I said before, most of us want the same things. So if we're doing for ourselves, then we're also doing it for other people because they want the same things. I hope that makes sense. So marijuana, drugs, that's all capitalist stuff, individual choice whether to use or not. But there are laws regulating, just like with liquor, alcohol. And most people are good people. Most people aren't just, I take that back. I was going to say most people aren't just going to go around willy-nilly just doing drugs out in the open. But you have seen that, right? Because they did create a culture without regulations to it. Like you have to be a certain age. You can't just go out walking around smoking. It has to be in the confines of your house or an area, just like smoking a cigarette, right? Let's continue.
The environment and also in promoting infrastructure spending.
Walz was criticized for his handling of the civic unrest following the murder of George Floyd by a police officer in Minneapolis in 2020.
I'm authorizing and talking to General Jensen to fully mobilize the Minnesota National Guard, an action that has never been taken in the 164-year history of the Minnesota National Guard.
Walz deployed the National Guard 3 days after Floyd's murder. In July, the governor signed a police reform bill banning the use of chokeholds in most cases and requiring other officers to intervene when another is using excessive force.
In the aftermath of George Floyd's...
See, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with signing something because a lot of officers, let me just say, I'm okay with officers having to intervene when there's when another officer is going too far. Because a lot of times I think this is just human nature. You know, this is my partner. I don't know if I am to intervene here. I want to trust his judgment. All right. So a lot of times the officers, they don't intervene. And I think it's okay to allow them to without any kind of repercussions. Sometimes, that your partner is of a higher rank than you. And so because of that, you feel like you have to stand down. But so I like that part, right? The chokeholds, I think, is possibly necessary. You're not going to choke someone to death regarding the George Floyd choke out. My only question would be, how long would it take for someone to choke you until you die? How long can you hold your breath for? So I don't think he was actually choking him, but his force that he was using led or assisted in George Floyd's death because of the autopsy. He overdosed on fentanyl, I think, or some drug that he had. He had overdosed, and those a combination of the police officer along with him overdosing caused that to happen. So I don't think he actually needed to do anything as far as the chokehold, because I don't think it was a chokehold that killed George Floyd. It was a combination of two things, I believe: the aggressive force of the officer, along with George Floyd overdosing. Let's continue.
A police reform bill banning the use of chokeholds in most cases and requiring other officers to intervene when another is using excessive force.
In the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, he faced some criticism that he did not act quickly enough to quell some of the violence that we saw on the streets of the city. There was
It took 3 days for the National Guard.
In the National Guard,
they started going crazy the same day or the day after.
In recent weeks, Walls has repeatedly used one word to describe Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance.
Yeah, they're weird, and I am not changing that. I see Donald Trump talking about the wonderful Hannibal Lecter or whatever weird thing he's on tonight. That is weird, babe.
Yeah, they all have talking points. Other prominent Democrats and other people in the media are now using the word weird. So it's like everything is coordinated with these guys, along with the media, the celebrities, the actual politicians. They're all like in unison together. And I don't know how people just can't see that. There's an agenda, especially if you have 90% of the media that goes one way, and they're all in unison with the same talking points every single time, and it comes straight from the Democrat Party. Let's continue.
And it seems to have caught on.
By the way, don't you find some of their stuff to just be plain weird?
In the lead up to his selection as Harris's running mate, he really showed a penchant for being the attack dog, namely his appearances on some of the Sunday shows, some of the cable TV hits that he did attacking J.D. Vance.
People like J.D. Vance know nothing about small-town America.
Although no Republican presidential candidate has won over Minnesota voters since Richard Nixon, the Trump campaign wants to compete there.
Minnesota is a state that Democrats really can't lose. Trump got very close in 2016 and has since then always tried to put the state into play. He and Vance have made appearances recently in the state, and they view it as a place where they could perhaps cut into the Democratic battleground map.
The Harris-Walz ticket and its platform will take Senate.
See, Minnesota is already a Democrat stronghold. It's not a battleground. So if the goal here is to gather votes from a certain state or demographic, it's not. I don't think it's working with him because they already have Minnesota. They already have the state that he's representing. So there's 6, 7 other battleground states. Well, not other, but battleground states, period. And Minnesota is not one of them. So still confused on why the pick. Let's continue.
And they view it as a place where they could perhaps cut into the Democratic battleground map.
The Harris Walls ticket and its platform will take center stage in Chicago during the week of August 19th, when the Democratic National Convention convenes to cement their nominations.
Walls helps neutralize J.D. Vance's appeal to rural voters, especially those voters in the Midwest, some of the states that will help determine the election. We expect Walls to give an address at the Democratic National Convention. That'll really be his first opportunity to give the American people a window into his life, his career, his background, and that will.
So I don't see it. I don't see. Okay, he's more popular with the rural voters as far as the inner city, the city voters, the soccer mom type areas. So rural areas usually vote red, from what I've heard. So maybe there's certain areas that they're trying to look at, but I'm not really seeing Walsh as someone who's going to really help bring in new voters. If anything, I see him possibly as a liability, because now it gives the Trump administration the ability to go full force with attacks. You kind of had to hold your tongue, even though he is Trump, you still kind of have to hold your tongue about certain things with Kamala because of her race and her gender. You do kind of have to play kid gloves because of how it can be perceived as misogynist or being a racist. So now we have an older white man, right? So now the attacks can come full force on him, and he could be a representative as someone for them to go after instead of going after Kamala. Because one thing I think they were trying to also do, the Trump administration, is blend Kamala with Biden. So therefore, it doesn't seem like you're just attacking Kamala, right? You got Biden also. So now you have this guy, the governor of Minnesota, that they can go after full force with strength. I could be wrong on that. I doubt it. Let me know if you think I am. I appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.